So our ultimate bunny is finally done and fully built up, and I am here to save you from the Bionic Plague. Now, Bionic Fuel is something that I see a lot of bunnies out there running, and it is something that I really do not like. Now, if it is your style, this isn't me attacking you or saying you're wrong. You can continue to run Bionic Fuel by all means, but I'm just saying, in my opinion, I don't think its benefits really mean anything whatsoever with what Bunny is designed to do. And there's very easy ways of building Bunny that you can just continue to run at full speed, because Bionic is going to slow you down, which means you're going to be pulsing less, and it's going to slow down your damage and ad clear quite a bit. So with this setup, we're going to be kind of getting the best of both worlds of basically mimicking Bionic Fuel while also not sacrificing really any sort of damage at all. At the moment in time, without perfect gear whatsoever, my crits can be upwards of like 1.2 million plus 1.1, depending on the enemy. So there's a lot of damage to be had, and it's going to be clearing incredibly fast. Now, I am going to be using high voltage. I will be showing off both a bossing build and a just circle AoE clear. So with the circle AoE clear, if you guys don't have ultimate bunny yet or high voltage, that will be an option for you if you want to use that. I do recommend using that if you're doing like the bunny cave. Don't bring high voltage into the bunny cave. You're not going to be clearing quick enough. You need to kill all of those enemies the moment they spawn. So I'll have all of those broken down here in this video, and we're going to be seeing exactly why Bunny is just so powerful. I mean, we all know how overpowered she is, but with this setup, you guys are going to be able to essentially sprint nonstop at full speed. No Bionic Fuel. There's going to be very rare scenarios where you ever run out of MP. Right now, my current sprint times are for about like 30 seconds at the moment, and I don't even have perfect gear. I could very easily see myself getting that closer to 40 seconds with a maxed out build. So I'm really looking forward to putting to all those pieces together. So we're going to break down everything that you need to know about Bunny and this build that I have set up with her, and also a way you can boss with this and run just like a normal circle setup without high voltage. This video is also being posted right as the update for Ultimate Valby is going live, and I'm going to be live on Twitch, and I will have her right away and building her. So if you're interested in seeing how well she is doing, make sure you guys stop on by the stream. Hopefully I'll see you over there. But with all of that introduction and all that good stuff out of the way, let's jump right into this build. Taking a look at Bunny's skills first, the only ones that you need to worry about are the second and third abilities, and then the passives. So Speed of Light, this is obviously what's going to be making us run so fast, but it is going to be constantly draining our MP. So that's one thing that Bionic Fuel does, is it makes it no longer drain your MP and instead drain your health, and it won't kill you. And even if you're at minimum health, you can still do the sprint, but it does slow down how fast you can sprint. And I really do not like how fast you sprint with Bionic, so I was doing everything in my power to avoid using that while still being able to sprint essentially at any point in time. So with this build, as you can see, normally it costs 25 mana every second to use this. I have this down to 16, and with my ideal reactor, I'm going to be getting that down even further. So that's where I was saying we're going to be able to sprint for so long, and the initial MP cost is also down to 7.8 from 12. So it costs basically nothing, and it's going to come back within 1.9 seconds. So don't be afraid to turn this off if there's just absolutely nothing going on. You don't really need to be moving. Just turn it off, save the MP, and you'll be able to sprint wherever you want. Now, our main thing is going to be lightning emission. Obviously, this is Bunny's bread and butter, and we do have high voltage, the Descendant mod here, affecting this. And what this is actually going to be doing is lowering the base cooldown on this. So I didn't know that that was something high voltage did before I started using it when making this build. I actually wasn't even planning on using high voltage originally in this build, but it's seriously just that good. It lives up to all the hype. It's seriously amazing. Even for ad clear stuff, it's seriously so good. The only time I've ever been like, oh wow, I need to take off high voltage is within the bunny cave. Everywhere else, my clear times are the same, if not faster, with high voltage on. So definitely go out and farm it. It does live up to the hype. And here, the main thing that we're going to be focusing on is getting the cooldown and our duration to overlap, basically. So you want your duration and your cooldown to meet, so that way when one lightning emission is over, you're ready to press the button again and start up the field, so that way you can always have damage going out. The second thing that we're going to be focusing on is getting our range up. This thing is going to max out at 27 meters. Now, you can max it out with an extra piece, but we really don't need it. It's only going to save us 1.2 meters. 25.8 is perfectly fine. There's really no reason to have it any higher, especially for sacrificing some more damage or quality of life. So that's currently what I got going here. The passive, just make sure you're like jumping around. You'll get some extra damage out and be moving a little bit more to sound out more lightning emissions, because these are going to happen every 7 meters. That's where I was saying with Bionic, you're actually going to be doing less damage because you're not going to be moving as fast and putting out as many lightning emissions. Quickly going over the reactor and the components with this build. On the reactor, look for just whatever weapon you want to be holding. Best case is usually the Thunder Cage. So that's what I run, with Electric and Singular as the skill power boosts. And then for the actual passives on here, I'm basically always going to want crit damage. When you crit with this build, it feels so good and the numbers are going to skyrocket. So I like to max that out when I can. And then the second one is where you can get some flexibility. I do not recommend skill duration. You're already going to be overlapping with high voltage incredibly easily, and you are not going to need the duration at all. So I would either look for a crit chance. If you're going to be bossing, look for damage to Colossus. Or if you want to just be sprinting around longer and not really worry about your MP even more than you already do, you can go for the skill cost reduction. Any of those are perfectly fine. Just find whatever fits best for you. There's a really good farm this week in White Knight Gulch if you're looking for one of these. Now, with the external components, we're going to be running the battle aesthetic set, specifically with the auxiliary power and the processor. That way we can have the double defense rolls. And then on the actual auxiliary power, look for HP and then MP recovery while not in combat. I unfortunately don't have one yet with that role, but essentially this would be the passive role that I'm looking on the battle aesthetics. Now the processor here, you're going to be looking for the item acquisition distance increase modifier. That makes it much more consistent to be picking up like MP and gold, pretty much everything. It's really nice to have. The processor doesn't have great substats, so that is personally my favorite for those, but don't worry about this one too much. Just get the 2-piece set there for the skill critical hit rate. Then the second set we're going to be running is the Annihilation set for a little bit extra duration. It helps just decrease the like cooldown time. So essentially without this, you're going to have like half a second where you can't have your lightning emission up. So this just puts you over the edge and makes it perfectly for free and gives you a little bit of wiggle room. On the sensor itself, this piece is incredibly important to get the good substats. You're going to want max MP and MP recovery in combat. This can make it much more consistent to be sprinting around. The bigger MP pool means the longer you can sprint. So try to get that in gold if you can. I would even sacrifice the Annihilation set for just like a legendary version if you can, with a better roll on that. So you get like 150 MP and then like a purple MP recovery in combat. That would be a really good roll and worth sacrificing the 5.7% duration until you get a better Annihilation sensor. And then on the actual memory, you're going to be looking for defense and then also MP recovery modifier. If I could find a piece in here, I can show you. Here on the Slayer memory, I have MP recovery modifier and defense. This is essentially the role that I'd be looking for on the Annihilation set, but unfortunately I have not found one yet. So just look for those substats and you'll be good to go. If you just skipped to this part of the video, make sure you guys stop over the stream. I'll be building Valby, but otherwise, welcome. And we're going to be looking at our mods here for our bunny. So once again, we're going to be running high voltage. I did accidentally catalyze this slot instead of the long distance maneuvering. So I did end up wasting a little bit more gold than I needed to. So if you're going to be catalyzing, do your long distance maneuvering. Long distance is important with this build because of a trick you can do. So with this trick, you can actually grapple the ground, and if you hold a side, you can basically spin in a circle, which makes you move for much longer and faster. That way, if you need to do some extra damage and you don't have any MP or anything like that, you can do a lot of lightning emissions very quickly. So that's a nice little trick to keep in mind as you're playing this build, and that's why I like to use long distance. Then the rest of our mods, our gold mods, are going to be Dangerous Ambush. This is going to give you a ton of extra skill attack. This works great as you're mobbing, even in a solo game. Does not matter. It's going to work incredibly well. And then MP Collector. That way we don't have to rely quite as much on our MP orb drops. this is going to be great. There's no cooldown on this, so you can get a ton of our MP. And the bigger our MP pool, the more we get back per trigger of this, which is really nice. Then just increase HP. You can use HP amplification instead if you want. They're really not that big of a difference. Then we're going to be maxing out our range with skill expansion and maximize range. These two are going to be what's getting us just below the max range, that 1.2 meters below the theoretical max. So that's really all we need. If you want to put range on your reactor, you can. I do not recommend it though. It's just 1 meter. Not going to make that big of a difference. And then from here, we're going to be getting a little bit more cooldown with focus on electric. And with this combo, that's going to get us below our duration, actually by quite a bit. You could even just use like the blue mod on here if you wanted to, electric specialist, for a little bit more damage, but it's only like 3%, not big a deal. And then I run singular specialist just because we don't really need more cooldown. If you want to run the purple version for more cooldown, you can as well. And then from here, we're going to be focusing on our critical damage. So you can run skill concentration, skill insight, or really any combination of the crit mods. So if you just want to like max out your crit damage and see the biggest number possible, you can do concentration and front lines. If you want to be critting more often, you can do insights and emergency measures. It's completely up to you what combinations you run and what feels best to you. I personally just like running the double blues. That way I get the best of both worlds. And then the big thing in this build that makes it all possible and allow us to run for so long is maximize conservation here. We are going to be losing a little bit of skill power modifier, but once again, even with this, we're still hitting well over 1 million on a good chunk of enemies. And that minus 35% skill cost is what's going to allow us to run for so long and drop us down to 16.1 per second from 25. So that's a big drop, and it's allow you to run much further. And then once again, if I get skill cost on my reactor, we can go even further. So that is seriously one of the most important things for me. If you really don't care about sprinting all that much, you can change it to the mod where it gives you a little bit of skill cost reduction. So frugal mindset here, give you a little bit of skill cost reduction, but also a little bit more range, and that would max out your range. So you can put that there, but personally I like maximize conservation to be able to sprint as long as possible. Quickly, I just wanted to show off exactly how much damage we can be doing and how long we can be sprinting. So one thing to keep in mind though is with lightning mission and high voltage, the lower that lightning bar is at the bottom of the screen, the less damage you're going to do. So when you first activate it and are able to activate it, you're not going to be hitting all that incredibly hard. But as you run around, it's going to be filling up and allowing you to deal more and more damage. And eventually we're going to be at well over 1 million, about 1.12 basically on our crits at the moment. If I put on like all the crit damage stuff, we could get that even higher. So that's where it gets super powerful, and just try to keep that bar at full. And just remember that there is a little bit of a wind up time when you're starting from fresh. With this build, by the way, I'm currently sitting at about 23% crit chance and 3.2 crit damage. That's without crit chance here on the reactor, but I do have crit damage. With both of those, we could be sitting pretty nice at about like 25-26+% crit rate with the 3.2, and that would feel really good. Quickly running through the bossing setup and then also the non-high voltage setup. So the bossing setup is pretty similar. We're still getting our range, HP, and we're doing a bit more crit with the crit damage. I just want to focus on the damage portion and just maybe rely on a little bit more luck. But once again, you can play around with these. Then I'm going to be swapping into maximize power for the extra skill power modifier. This is going to increase our cooldowns, but we can fit on MP conversion. So this way we're still looking at very similar cooldown to duration. There's only a 0.6 seconds where it's not up, which is pretty much nothing. So don't really need to worry about that. And that's also with a purple cooldown if I had, a purple duration on my reactor. With that gold or with a gold cooldown, that would be easily able to be constantly up. We're still fitting dangerous ambush over here on this slot, and then focus on electric here in the middle. And then finally, I just have Spear and Shield on because there's not many great R mods, and this one at least gets me some extra skill power for absolutely no investment. The non-high voltage setup is going to be very similar, but there's one big detriment to not using high voltage is the fact that lightning emission without high voltage has a base cooldown of 30 seconds. So we can't just rely on our battle and attack mods to get our cooldown far enough. We are going to need an extra mod to get that cooldown there. So I'm using time distribution just because I don't need all that much and I can fit more HP. If you don't have like duration or something like that or annihilation set going, you might need to run just full on like nimble fingers in that slot to get this at constant uptime. So you might need to play around with this mod. But for my setup, this is all the cooldown I needed, and I get a little bit more HP, which I will never say no to. But yeah, so since we're not using high voltage, we do lose out on the skill cost reduction. So you're not really going to be able to sprint as long with this build. So another reason I don't really recommend it as much. I do recommend the high voltage, but if you're just doing the bunny cave, you don't need the skill cost reduction anyways. You're just going to be sitting there jumping or whatever. So you don't need it, and it's perfectly fine. Still have Dangerous Ambush, the crit mods, and then also our range, and then our electric and singular mods. All you need, very similar to the other setups. Personally, I think this is the best bunny setup out there right now. I think it just blends the overall theme of bunny, sprinting fast, just always sprinting, getting through things as much as possible, while also dealing incredible damage to everything around you. I think it blends it incredibly well. It doesn't lean into one thing too much, one way or the other. I think it's the perfect blend. So if this was something that you guys think is interesting and it ends up working out well in your game, make sure to leave a thumbs up on the video to let me know. It really does help me out. Also consider subscribing for more First Descendant content. We're gonna have a bunch of builds, especially Ultimate Valby here very shortly, so keep an eye out for that. But thank you all for watching this far, and I will catch you all in the next video. See ya.